Hello, welcome back, Bound Community. This is going to be a thread response. I can't remember the exact video I originally saw where they were talking about this. I'm not sure if it was, might have been you, Mr. Mayo, I can't remember. But it was a thread about albums that, certain albums that mean a lot to you, whether it be sentimental value or, about where you were when you heard it. Something makes you feel good about it. Good memories, and certain songs or albums can do that to you. So I want to do kind of a variation of that. Just certain albums that stick out to me that have a lot of sentimental value to me, and mean a lot more when I listen to them. We're going to start with this one here. This is Meet the Beatles. With this album, my brother, who's about 9 years older than me, when I was very, very young, um, he was obsessed with the Beatles. Really loved them. This was one of the albums that he had on vinyl. He didn't have too many on vinyl, but this was one that stuck out to me. Um, just looking at the cover of it, then with the turtlenecks and that blue tent, that always just popped. And whenever he'd play this album, it's got so many great songs on it. But this is really my first introduction. This album was like my first introduction to the Beatles, which then, they're my favorite band. So it's definitely had an impact, and I always think about that. Those times spending with my brother listening to the Beatles, especially this album. Whenever I listen to the Meet the Beatles. Okay, next one here. Focus here. There we go. This next one is David Bowie's The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars. When I first saw Labyrinth, when I was maybe in second or third grade, I really fell in love with the soundtrack to Labyrinth. Really loved the music, loved David Bowie in that. And I didn't really know that he was a singer. I was very young at the time. But really, really loved him singing in the movie. And when I was on vacation in Pittsburgh, I found this actually on cassette at a music shop, and I think that was the first tape that I had of David Bowie, and I just fell in love with the album. I loved David Bowie at the time just from the movie, but I really fell in love with the album and how great it was. And when I first started buying records, I went to a record shop and I was getting ready to check out, buying one or two things. And a copy of this was laying in a pile in front of the register, and it was all beat up and torn to shit. And I asked him, I said, "Hey, are you guys selling that?" And he said, "Nope, he said, "It was a piece of shit, And I'm like, "Oh," and he's like, "If you want it, you can have it." And so I took a very beat up copy, and it still played. It didn't sound very good at all and didn't look very good, but it still played. But having that album and listening to that over and over, and just looking at the cover, especially the back cover, just looking at him on the back cover, really meant a lot having that. And this isn't my original copy. I don't have that one anymore. It got water damaged, unfortunately, over the summer, so I don't have it anymore. This is a upgraded copy I have, but it's still probably my favorite album of his. Not just because of the sentimental reasons, but because of how fantastic that album it is. Alright. Trying to move through some of these here. We'll go to this one here. This one, not necessarily because of an outstandingly great track listing or anything, but this album here, this is the Rock and Roll Music Volume 1 by the Beatles. It's on like a budget label, Music for Pleasure. UK album, import, whatever. It's official. No, I don't mean like import as in like, because people don't like to say counterfeit or bootleg. It's a real deal album. But when I first started buying records, went to a record shop. It's actually the first time that I went into a record store. Actually, it was in Pittsburgh that I went to one. and all I wanted to do was try to find a Beatles album, and they had some, but for whatever reason, this one stuck out to the most. I loved the cover. Um, it was all great rock and roll songs. And this ended up being this and the Rocky Horror Picture Show soundtrack were the first two albums I ever bought from like a record shop. So that means more to me, just as being the first record I ever bought, and I still have it after. God, it's been quite a long time now, 12, 13 years. Moving on to a more recent album here. This came out a year ago, a little over a year. It was in 2017 when this came out. But this is The Laughing Apple by Yusuf Islam, or better known as Cat Stevens. But I'm a big Cat Stevens fan. But when the first single off this, which is called, I forget what it's called now, See What Love Did to Me, when that was released as the first single, beautiful, beautiful song, and I fell in love with it, and I pre-ordered the album, and it's one of the, I think it's one of the greatest albums ever did one of the greatest albums ever made, not just by Cat Stevens, but by anyone. And it's got a lot of songs in here that were his old songs that he redid, and it's really fantastic. Highly recommend picking this one up. It's a very, very mellow album, very beautifully made. All right, next one. This is a fantastic album, and this was a guilty pleasure of mine when it first came out. I didn't really want anyone to know that I liked it. Definitely don't feel that way now. I feel like I feel it's a fantastic album. I probably like it even more now than I did when it came out here. But I definitely don't hide away from telling people how much I love it. This is The Best Damn Thing by Avril Lavigne. Very good pop punk album. This came out in 2006 or 2007. But yeah, it's very fun. I was in I think when this came out, I was in 8th grade, and really fantastic album. Highly recommend it. I didn't have a copy when it came out. My sister got a copy for Christmas, and I stole it from her without her knowing. But very fantastic album, very, very catchy. Not for everyone, obviously, especially people that are into a lot of different kinds of music. A lot of people, But highly recommend checking it out if you're into any sort of like pop punk or any of that kind of stuff. Okay, moving on. This is Bob Dylan's self-titled album, first album. I got really into Bob Dylan when I was in 7th grade. That's when I first started listening to him. And I always say it was John Lennon who made me want to play guitar. But after listening to Bob Dylan, it was Bob Dylan who made me want to play an acoustic guitar. But this isn't the Mr. Tambourine Man kind of folk stuff he's doing. I mean, this is just your standard hymn, guitar, harmonica, folk stuff. Very good standards on here. Some stuff that he wrote. Really cool album. And when I did finally hear this album when I was in whenever I heard this one, I was freshman in high school, I think, when I first heard this, and it blew me away on how sparse it was, but then at the same time how amazing it was. And then of course after having the cover and everything and seeing that, I started wearing a cap and the fake fleece lined jacket, but yeah, it just takes me back when I was, freshman, high school, sophomore, and listen to that album, that era of Bob Dylan. Next one here is the Misfits' Famous Monsters. Not the Misfits album that most Misfits fans are going to, agree on or bring up, really, but I think it's one of the best albums. I really like this lineup. I think Chud is a fantastic drummer. Jerry on bass, Doyle on guitar, Graves on vocals. It was a great combination. The 70s stuff with Danzig is magnificent. It's fantastic. I mean, this is not the same kind of style as the early Misfits. I don't really like to compare them all that much because it's two different kind of styles. And it's a really fantastic album. It's catchy as hell. There's a lot of songs, great imagery, and despite what some might think on the Jerry's ideology on things in life and Doyle's outlook and Michael Graves' political views and everyone's things, all that aside, just getting down to the album, and they were fantastic at making an album. I don't agree with everything that all of them do or say or their ideology, especially Graves, but all that aside, they can make a fantastic album. They can. I don't think they could get back together, all four of them, and do another album together. I don't think it would work. But it is what it is. That album, I kind of got off topic there. That album, I first was able to hear when I was summer right before my junior year of high school, and riding around in my car with I didn't have a CD player. I had a tape deck, so I had to use my portable CD player and run that through the tape player. But I bought that album because I had all the other Misfits stuff, and I had American Psycho, but I didn't have Famous Monsters. Put that in, and it just blew me away on how catchy it is and the doo-wop influence, and just takes me back to me being 16 and cruising around listening to that album. Being really corny and playing the songs off that album on my acoustic for my girlfriend at the time and thinking how cool I was. But not everything ended up well with that time of my life and people I was hanging out with and the girls at the time that I was with. But just to be in the car again by myself, listening to that at 16, that's the good memories from it. And that's what I like to. That's what comes back whenever I listen to it. It's not a bad memory. It's a good one. Getting close to the end here. This is turning into kind of a long video, and I can't do every single album that means a lot to me. But and these next two I'm going to show at the same time is when I was junior in high school. Up until I was junior in high school, I had my hair real long, longer than it is now. I know it looks short right now because it's in a bun, but I had hair almost down to my waist, and for whatever reason, the girl that I was going with at the time, she convinced me to cut it all off, and I started listening to a lot more 50s rock and roll and doo-wop, so I cut it all off and had it in a pompadour, and I was wearing my glasses more often. I don't wear them now even, but I had big thick glasses at the time, so I was wearing them more often. And I bought a 2-disc Buddy Holly set, which basically had all the songs from these two albums, with probably a few more added on. This is Buddy Holly's self-titled album, and this is the Crickets album, and had all the songs that are on these. But it's just kind of like with the Famous Monsters. When I go back and I listen to these Buddy Holly stuff, it takes me back. I mean, mainly to driving. That was a big thing. Is when you're 16 and you just got your license, and whether you're alone or you're driving around with someone else, with a friend or with a girl or whatever, it just kind of is when I listen to it, it just takes me back, and there I am driving the back roads, in my my Oldsmobile, listen to Buddy Holly with the windows down. It's summertime, it's fall, driving with the windows down, and just listen to that stuff. It's good times, good memories to have with that. And the last one here is this is a bootleg. This is of the Let It Be Get Back stuff by the Beatles. And this is a recent acquisition of as of the past couple years, 2 years or so ago. I picked this up, but I love the material on it, but mainly it's the cover, and that's mainly because this picture is in it's on, I think it's the same one, if not at least from the same photo session, on the back of the 60 through to 70 sets of the Beatles. It's on the back of that, and that's another album that my brother had that I would look at the record sleeves and whatnot, and then this picture is also in the anthology booklet for Anthology 3. I'm pretty sure that's where I also remember seeing it from back when I was little. But I just remember looking at the cover and thinking how cool it was, and I liked that they had long hair and mustaches. It was just a cool look, a cool comparison to the like the Meet the Beatles cover, and or I guess looking at the Please Please Me cover and then looking at that one, it was just really cool for young me. And I guess that's where we're gonna wrap it up. And like I said, I can't show everything that I want to show that has value or tell all the stories I want to tell because we're only going on 16 minutes now. But just a fun little video. So if you want to do a response to this one, let me know. Call me out in a video or something, or however you do it here in the community. I'd like to see what you guys think, or let me know in the comments some albums that really mean a lot to you, and if you have a story behind it, throw it in there. I'd like to hear it. I'd like to read about it.